Welcome one and all to a blast from the past. More nostalgia for you like always, just like you ordered. I came here expressly shipped, so sign for this delivery and enjoy the content. Ah, yes, it does seem to be that time of year. It's Muniz March Madness, everyone's favorite yearly celebration that is starting for the first time right now with no guarantees of it ever happening again. How fun. Well, in this package here, I seem to be seeing double, both Agent Cody Banks and Agent Cody Banks 2, Destination London. A true duology of pure early 2000s peak cinema that just recently celebrated its 20th anniversary for the first movie and has had me deathly afraid of exploding Mentos my entire life. And I'm not going to lie to you all, as a YouTuber, why would I ever lie? I haven't watched either of these films since at least before 2011. Maybe I've seen parts of the second one beyond them just randomly on cable as I've traveled around to conventions throughout the 2010s, but aside from that, I am going in completely raw to revisit these certified classics. Look at this man. You wanted to be this man. You thought it was so cool to be a kid, but also a secret agent. You needed this to make it through your mundane life in the classroom, learning about various skills you'll never apply to your future. Projection? Possibly. So come with me on a trip down memory lane to when Frankie Muniz was the biggest celebrity out there as we celebrate the first ever Muniz March Madness. And possibly the last. But let's watch the Agent Cody Banks duology.
It's quite a lady killer.
Everything seems pretty normal as we meet Cody and his family. He has a younger brother who, in a reverse type of way, bullies Cody about being weird or being a loser, or the fact that he can't speak to girls without fumbling tremendously. We start our story in Seattle with 15-year-old Cody Banks and his family live, and for some reason they have guinea pigs that live in their backyard, but it's time for school now, so goodbye family, everything still seems pretty ordinary. That is until a careless mother leaves her kid in a car alone, and to make things worse, alone in a car on a hill, and to make things even more worse, alone in a car on a hill near an active volcano. Okay, well that's just Mount St. Helens, and it's not ever dire at this point, but still, it's always a looming threat. Now we get introduced to Cody's secret set of specific skills, as he then Tony Hawk video game moves his way around to eventually get on top of this car to then quickly get the kid to a complete stop, a mere inch away from a train plowing through them. And just like any good secret agent, he just leaves without a trace, knowing that the day is saved, or at least that baby is. Frankie Muniz here was the perfect teen that we all wanted to be, whether it was Malcolm in the Middle or the burst of movies in the early 2000s that really sat with our generation at the time to become these cult classics. His ability to feel one step ahead of all of the adults in every one of these productions really gave that feeling to us that adults, these authority figures, aren't always correct or as smart as we most times assume they are. Clearly for comic relief for the kid and teen perspective, but in some cases is extremely accurate. Jumping back into the film though, we get to learn about this evil plot involving the use of metal-eating nanobots that this guy, Dr. Connors, has been working on and is forced to create a large quantity of, as this evil guy, Dr. Brinkman, who wants to be on the brink of world domination because, well, he's a bad guy. What else are you gonna do?
Can they be programmed to eat anything other than oil?
Sure, any silicon or carbon-based compound.
And these nanobots can eat anything that they're programmed to. And so with metal, they can even destroy tracking systems on a missile, rendering countries' arsenals useless. Sure, kind of a loose, generic plot, but if everything else is fun, it should be a good time, right?
He'll take on any threat. Except one.
Cody Banks?
The CIA is aware of this and is scrambling for a way to stop this from happening, which is where we get the introduction of Cody Banks' connection to the CIA and why he's a secret agent. There is a summer camp that he attends that recruits kids and turns them into sleeper agents, essentially for the CIA unbeknownst to their parents. So the United States is secretly indoctrinating and creating child soldiers. That's neat.
You're telling me we're training children to become agents?
For this particular mission, they need someone smooth with the ladies, someone who can get close to Dr. Connor's daughter Natalie, infiltrate her private school, become friends with her, and get invited over to her birthday party, where her father and even some more bad guys may just be at. Luckily for them, they have Cody Banks, who lied on his skill set, but they don't know that yet. But before we go on, we have to understand something. This movie is from the early 2000s. There's a lot of lines, jokes, or references that aren't exactly lined up to where if this movie was made today, if you catch my drift.
Are you in special ed?
Yeah, like that. Or in the context of this lady, Veronica, who is portrayed as this drop-dead gorgeous, no-nonsense agent that ends up showing up at Cody's school, specifically not long after he could barely talk to a girl in his class. And here she just bursts into an actively used boys' locker room, which is, violation after violation, but at least it makes Cody look good to his peers when she specifically needs him. She tells him the secret code phrasing for him to understand that this is for the CIA, and he understands and heads out with her to the mission. But that clearly adult woman snuck into a school, walked into a boys' locker room, assaulted some of them, derobed this kid, and I guess all is forgiven or goes unnoticed if it's in the benefit of the CIA. Veronica is Cody's handler, more so than a partner, always being cold and direct to Cody just to get this mission over with and run efficiently. But yeah, Keith David is in this movie, and he's just a goofball, hamming up every scene that he's in, chewing up the scenery, and adding a level of fun anytime that he's on screen. He's just great. And there's just something to be said about how funny it is to see Cody, or just Frankie in general, being this kid surrounded by adults and being able to keep up or out-understand the situation of all these adults here, and in this movie, elite members of the CIA. Once Cody gets debriefed, not in the same context as that other kid getting derobed, he has to get transferred to a private school, which causes a whole thing we get to in just a second. But we also get all the classic 007 tropes here, especially the one where a tech guy shows off all the fun gadgets for Cody to use and even a cool vehicle that he's not allowed to have, at least for now. The hip and young slang that this gadget guy uses is just peak cringe perfection.
Wait, one more time.
I don't even want to know.
I love it. I also love the look of the CIA building, and for that matter, any set piece in this film, as it feels so 2000. Every action movie, even ones that were serious as opposed to this one, always had these elaborate, very futuristic chic designs to the places like a government agency building or a bad guy lair. It's so campy, and for that, I also love it. It's an underrated design choice, and I am tired of pretending it's not. So now, with the whole transferring of schools, he has to come up with a lie to his mom and dad about this, since the whole secret agent thing is a secret. So they just go along with it as it's covered and paid for, so the parents aren't inconvenienced and worried about the cost of going there. And to really seal this deal, Veronica comes over to pose as someone from the school to convince the parents fully, and in a very similar way that she did at the school, except less violent. But all the "oh dang, she's hot" moments are there once more, backed with Nellie's "hot in here" playing in the background, just like before. Because they really have to sell you on this. This chick's hot, and guys will listen to her because they are intimidated. But enough about that, it's time for school, and Cody is all ready for the day ahead, to try and get close to Natalie, played by another huge teen celebrity at the time, Hilary Duff. Whereas he tries to build this confidence to go and speak to her, he gets cornered by some bullies, where the lead bully is, oh my god, is that Troy McGinty? The bully from 2001's Max Keeble's Big Move? AKA one of my personal favorite movies, AKA go watch my video on it after this one. Wow, he's like really suited for this bully role. Well, he doesn't have as big of a role here, but I genuinely like that he's also a bully in this film. Just a lot more of a pathetic one, as Cody never really has an issue pushing him out of the way, whenever he decides to come around. Right when we first see him, we get this black and white fantasy scene of what could happen in Cody's imagination, but in reality, he does have the bully get shocked from his special gadget watch, and is able to get through and speak to Natalie, who thinks he's definitely a bit weird. And maybe, just maybe, Cody is no longer seeing this as just a mission, but is actually catching feelings for Natalie. Love. It can happen before you even meet the person, apparently. But in this conversation, we also get some 2000s dialogue, like this.
T.S. Eliot is a man.
Well, if you want to get all technical, you never know these days.
And even Hilary Duff giving us one of these comments.
Do you by any chance happen to be in special ed?
I really expected better from you from the person who said this.
Yeah, it's totally gay. You know, you really shouldn't say that. It's insulting. Knock it off.
To be fair, this was met with criticism at the time, with a full apology from MGM stating that they in no way meant to be insensitive to kids with special educational needs, but rather it was meant to show how cruel kids can be to one another. As you have seen, Cody overcomes his own speech problems and saves the day, continuing on to say, we will be mindful in the sequel. Speaking of ed, we get a whole scene about driver's ed, where Natalie fails her driving test, and Cody does some of the most reckless driving ever, where he cuts off the instructor's backup brakes and does some sick action movie driving maneuvers. Completely not practical, but 100% totally radical. Well, of course, he doesn't get passed for the test initially, and the instructor ends up throwing up. At least Natalie gives him a look of there's something different about this boy. And plus the CIA convinced the barf-covered instructor to pass him anyway. Speaking of convincing, Cody convinces the CIA that in order for him to be a focused first agent and put all of his attention on Natalie, he needs them to do all of his chores at home and his homework for school. So they all do this in between the moments his parents aren't there, and it's a pretty funny thing overall. Or maybe Cody is just focusing on something like, I don't know, Warcraft 3, the good one, not Reforged. The CIA have to hide once the parents come home, and at one point all of them are squished into the back of the van, which we get a pretty funny scene of them all being squished having to talk to Cody, as this one agent outside of the van is forced to hold on to the doggy doo-doo bags by placing them in his suit pocket. What won't this man do for our country? When duty calls, he picks it up. But now Cody needs to call Natalie. The CIA needs him to get close to her, figure out a way for him to get the party invite, but he has no confidence, remember? He struggles to do so, which causes the CIA to figure out that he lied when it comes to being smooth with the ladies. Keith David is at first mad about this whole thing, but then has everyone in the CIA building try and help him become more, acquainted to not just talking to women, but to women in general. It's a pretty uncomfortable scene all around, but especially when the gadget guy pulls out a hologram of this girl who crawls onto the table in a very seductive way towards Cody, as all of the men in the room seemingly get very excited and have their attention fixed towards the hologram, and their attitudes are very, bonk-worthy. Subtle commentary or useless cringe. You decide. Natalie, the next day, falls off a ladder at school, but Cody catches her, and somehow she still has her leg hurt from this. So now he helps her to the nurse's office, where, in waiting, they really end up hitting it off. Wow, maybe Cody Banks has some W-Riz after all. As by the end of this conversation, he is invited to her party, and it looks like the plan so far is a success. Veronica, though, was worried about Cody messing this up and sneaks in as the nurse and nearly ruins it all. But Cody pulls through in the end, and Veronica gets to feel pretty stupid for a second for not trusting Cody. He just pulled all this off. He did it. But now it is time for the party, so Cody is given a nice whip for him to drive, all reckless, as he ends up speeding off towards the party after being fitted with all the tech that he needs for his secret agent work there. We notice through the X-ray mode in his sunglasses that the party is heavily secured, with the guards themselves having some weapons on them, alerting the CIA that there is a good chance more than just Dr. Connors is going to be there. The X-ray mode also shows us that after all, Cody is a perv and is enjoying the effect of this feature on some ladies at the party until he gets hit with the PG censorship mode. And by the way, this movie is rated PG. For all that we have seen so far and what's left to come, I just wanted to let you know that. Anyway, Dr. Connors is there, but is clearly not giving much time to his daughter or the party as he heads to meet Dr. Brinkman and head to the secret lab that's on the property. Cody makes an appearance at the party and gives Natalie her present, which is a necklace that has a tracker in it, and after she gets pulled away by some other friends, Cody ends up gambling for a second at the kids' party, which, okay, but then he gets his sneak on as he now Solid Snake infiltrates this lab to spy on the meeting taking place, where we get to see and learn all about the full potential of the nanobots and how they are stored in these frozen ice cube pods, housing nearly 40,000 of them each. Once this demonstration of how they work is over and they all leave, Cody pulls a Mission Impossible to sneak one out of there, and through the ice melting and him in a panic over the nanobots eating the metal within his shoe, where he tried storing the ice, the alarms are triggered and he barely makes it out of there, only to be stopped by the bullies from school at the party, where he has to beat them up in a spectacular fashion, which now exposes himself to not only being more than he let on to all of his peers, but for the bad guys to realize that this is the work of the CIA, based on the fighting style that Cody is doing, as well as them knowing that they're doing the whole kid agents thing.
Now they've sent a kid. Very impressive. Commence Eris child recruitment campaign immediately.
I'm a junior secret agent working for the CIA.
Whatever.
Name's Banks. Cody Banks.
Agent Cody Banks.
We did get to see how Dr. Connors is being very much forced into doing this work for evil when it originally was funded in the hopes that it could be used to help clean up disasters like oil spills. So while he is in the wrong in some aspects, at least he has some redemption-worthy qualities. But thanks to Cody, the bad guys all escape and the CIA no longer needs Cody to be on the case, since everything is kind of blown. And right after building such a nice relationship with Natalie too, that's sad. Like, instead of the typical break up and get back together of the main characters, it becomes a breakup and get back together of an agent in the CIA. And it's all pretty heartbreaking and sad, especially since he is forbid from seeing her, but she isn't forbid from seeing him, right? She ends up coming over to his place, blowing his parents and little brother's minds that Cody has a girl over, let alone talks to one, but that visit is short-lived as they leave to go get some food, where she is admitting to having some sort of feelings towards Cody. The henchmen of the bad guys show up and get into a giant restaurant fight, frying pans and all, with Cody, until by the end, they knock knock out Cody and Natalie is taken, as the bad guys wanted some leverage over Dr. Connors listening to them and doing whatever Dr. Brinkman says. What a bummer. Even more so when Veronica is the one who's waking Cody up and leaving him back at his place with nothing. As the case is completely over, the CIA will take it from here to figure things out. But I've watched enough of these 2000s films where the plot is pretty clear and that one kid can save the world, specifically when adults count them out. But after moping around for a while and being grounded for coming back at a late hour, beaten up and offering no explanations for anything, he remembers from the technology in his room that his brother was messing with that he can track exactly where Natalie was taken to thanks to the necklace. He tries telling his brother that he's a secret agent, which he doesn't fully believe. He ends up paying his brother off then and has him pretend to be him under the covers of his bed while he sneaks out of the house and heads to grab some gear from the CIA headquarters, completely breaking in after losing authorization, which, hey, we should probably get some tighter security on this place. You know, that's just a thought. He even takes that car from earlier for really quick transportation, as he then just catches a flight over to the Cascade Mountains, where he Jimmy Neutron jet fusions his way through the snowy mountains on his rocket-powered snowboard, as he has to fight some goons that are after him along the way. And then he just burns them alive. PG family entertainment, good times. Keith David also realizes that Cody Banks had snuck in and taken everything, sending Veronica to head in after him to get him off the mission for good. These snowboard battles are intense though, as we get to see this ridiculous explosion followed by Cody getting stuck in a tree, nearly starting a forest fire. Didn't Smokey teach you anything? Veronica shows up in the most 2000 sci-fi piece of gadgetry I've ever seen. This big and bulky jetpack that feels like prototypes from Minority Report with Tom Cruise, and I absolutely love it. The production of this movie, from the props to the set dressing, 10 out of 10. But she isn't there to stop Cody from getting himself killed. She sees how stubborn he is, but actually how driven he is to save Natalie, and hopefully save the day. So she joins him to head to the secret base and sneak their way in. I do love that we can clearly see where they're heading towards, as Cody awkwardly quietly points out where they need to go. But once inside, they make their way through to where Natalie is being held, as Cody explains to her everything and why he's been so weird, which of course upsets her at first to realize that it was always a mission, but Cody tries assuring her that it was more than that. In the beginning, she was just the assignment. Now she's his everything.
You're not gonna propose to me, are you?
I mean, they really don't know much about each other if you really start thinking about it, but whatever. After some confrontation, Dr. Brinkman gets a hold of Natalie.
Where is my dad?
I'm not going to tell you.
Holding a block of nanobot ice to her head, as aside from metal, you can program them to eat anything specific.
They can be programmed to break down any silicon or carbon-based compound.
But Cody threatens to destroy the whole place, and then he does it, as well as the nanobots are dropped. What could this all mean? Is humanity doomed forever? Well, not quite. Natalie picks them up and just violently shoves them into Dr. Brinkman's mouth. And then, well, this happens. Remember, this is a PG-rated movie, and that is traumatizing. Also, Natalie's a 16-year-old murderer. Write about that in your Lizzie McGuire journal. Be seeing you, Dr. Brinkman. Cody gets to do this sick punch though, so that's cool. But what's not cool is the ice, as all of the nanobots are getting set free, eating all of the metal in sight. And with only moments left to make an escape before the whole place blows up, Cody tosses some nanobot ice cubes at the bay doors, allowing the helicopter with Veronica, Dr. Connors, and Natalie to get free. But also, what is this tracking shot right here? I'm gonna throw up. Cody is held back by one of the worst jump scares I have ever had, where now he has to fight one of the big henchmen one last time before he sends him back flying to the CIA, strapping him onto that cool jetpack in a very weird way and sends him blasting off Team Rocket style. Right as the base explodes, however, he is able to jump from the mountain onto the underbar of the helicopter as they make their way out of there alive. Back at the CIA, everyone is celebrating this absolute win. Cody is reinstated as a proper agent and thanked for his hard work. Veronica even shows mad respect for him now and calls him her partner. I can't wait to see her in the sequel, right? Well, at least Keith David is happy, and that's all that really matters at the end of the day. The bad henchman is now in custody, but that's okay, he's not coming back. This all alludes to nothing. But now, in the end, Cody and Natalie spend some time together. He's a lot smoother in conversation, maybe even sparking up a real relationship together here, and they just start making out as the credits roll. This is literally the definition of a teen fantasy movie. Being a teenager, being a secret agent, saving the day, and getting the girl. What more could you ever want as a kid? Well, how about a sequel? That's right, Agent Cody Banks 2 Destination London. Our little agent is going overseas this time, with some familiar faces showing back up, and a lot of the previous cast just no longer being a thing. So we get to start off this movie with a look into the summer camp that is secretly training kids to be CIA secret agents. And Cody shows off how good and tough he is by winning a fierce game of capture the flag. He's basically treated as the #1 person at the camp, but their captain camp counselor Victor Diaz is giving off some pretty shady vibes, going on about trusting no one, not even him. I wonder what that means. But when the parents are quickly approaching for Parents' Day at the camp, they activate Code 42, which sets off all the kids to quickly start camouflaging all of the high-tech gadgets, weapons, trading programs, and more that pertain to them all being secret agents, now under the guise of a wholesome camp experience. We get a moment with his family since they aren't really in the film all that much, but his brother seems to still pick on him and clearly never believed enough that he was a secret agent, now claiming that he's a fake secret agent.
I've been following the stock market like a hawk. I guess things are looking rosy again on the NASDAQ.
Well, yeah, they aren't so great these days.
Is that my video now?
Hey, a video now. I have some of those. What a classic device that everyone used for 3 months and moved on from. After the parents all leave and the night is quiet, things quickly get out of hand as helicopters approach the camp, alerting all the kids to wake up, and Diaz has Cody protect him, telling him that this is a drill and that they have to protect him and help get him out of there. And while we do all of this, all of the kids defeat this military attack, only for them to find out that it was real and that Diaz was actually the bad guy, who ends up stealing this mind control program from underneath the campsite, which houses a secret base. And hey, as long as Keith David is here, everything is going to be okay. Well, maybe not. Cody is put on the case to go and stop him now, meaning his destination is London. Now, the title checks out. The plan this time is for him to become a part of this international orchestra as a clarinet player that takes place at the Kensworth estate, where Josephine Kensworth oversees the orchestra and Duncan Kensworth may be up to some shady business with Diaz. Cody will have to pretend to be a part of the orchestra in order to have time to snoop around the mansion and find, first of all, proof that there is a connection, and then 2, understand the plans that Diaz has. We get to meet a new handler in London this time, focusing more so on the comedy than the first movie did, having Anthony Anderson being the handler, as we see him meeting Cody and overseeing Cody's mission instead of Veronica, which is odd, but hey, it's Anthony Anderson. This was his era, and he would blast some chingy in the car. Just being a big goofball, while Cody is contrasted as the "I'm better than you" attitude towards the less than serious adult. We now get to learn more about the evil plot, and that's that this mind control tech would be used for some important figures and world leaders coming into London to hang out with the Queen and can lead them into political power and basically puppet stringing the world to do their bidding to profit from. What's the difference to real life? We get taken to meet the new Gadgets man, who is surely an interesting delight. He has the energy of Pops from Regular Show, and I will not elaborate on that, but he has some fun and bizarre gadgets like a listening device retainer and, of course, the Mentos. And after rewatching this movie, how much did Mentos pay to basically have an ad for them constantly throughout the film? Like, sure, it promotes the Mentos blowing up and all that, but I mean, come on. If this isn't sponsored, then it's even funnier. He also gets his clarinet that can play itself because, you know, he can't play any of the instruments out there anyway, so they just gave him one that does it for him, especially for him to keep up at as high of a level as the rest of the kids there. And when he ends up meeting the rest of these kids, he makes an awkward impression, as when this one girl here is about to eat one of their Mentos, like her own Mentos, not one of Cody's exploding ones, Cody freaks out and makes her spit it out and throws it out of the window in fear, making him look like the weirdo, especially in front of Theon Greyjoy.
Peace.
And be seeing you too.
Agent Cody Banks is known for getting the job done.
No wonder all the malls are empty. They got all you kids working undercover.
Cody better fall in line, as the group is going to be performing for the Queen at that big get-together of world leaders coming up. So it's all about practicing. For everyone except for Cody, who just needs to snoop around the place during their downtime. Anthony Anderson, or Derek, sorry, he gets a job working at the estate as well, taking over the job as this pastry chef in the mansion, making things awkward for the most part when meals are being served in the house. But the movie parts that do happen here in the mansion are pretty fun. It's this very singular based location, this small vibes overall, with part of it showcasing others in different rooms and areas, with Cody sometimes having to sneak around it all and listening in on the bad guys and not getting caught for escaping his room and practicing. The mind control device seems to work, as they tested it on this dog who can now pour you a drink and play the piano. That's convenient. So there isn't much time with not much known and how to combat this yet. In the meantime, we do get to really meet Derek and understand that he used to be at a higher position in the CIA instead of being downgraded to a handler, really missing his old work that he did. And Cody, well, he still has to go to some sort of school in the UK while undercover. And there's even some light cursing in a PG film for good measure.
Yeah, guys.
What did you say?
But why would Diaz go bad is the real question. What drove him to turn his back on the CIA and go rogue? He was supposed to be the director of the CIA at one point, but felt slighted by them when he wasn't picked, so he decided that he was going to take over the world, or at least control it through others as vessels, specifically through the help of Duncan and this weird dentist guy, as he is used to implant others with a device that connects through their teeth to their brain. But while Cody was spying in on this, he narrowly escapes, but the cameras see everything, making it known to Diaz and Duncan that the CIA, and more importantly, Cody Banks, is on their tail. Cody makes it back in time to catch up with some practice where he's put on the spot to play his clarinet for everyone, and the instrument does its thing, it takes over for him, and everyone is impressed. But now he notices that in the city, he is being followed by Diaz, so he leaves the group as they head back to the mansion, which this girl, Emily, takes notice of. As now Cody and Derek get into a big chase throughout the city that is action-packed, where Diaz is recklessly shooting at them with a mini bazooka in broad daylight. Well, alright then. Okay, where is he pulling all these rockets from? Okay, and at first glance, I thought that was a SNES Super Scope. But more importantly, remember how much they were going to be mindful in this movie versus the last one? Well, oh baby, a whole year in between films does wonders for growth. Gone are the special education jokes. Here instead, we get a bunch of weight jokes at Anthony Anderson's expense.
And an overweight agent who's on probation. Hey, who you calling overweight?
Shocker. Who could have seen that one coming? Luckily, we get this really funny, and by funny, I mean awful slow-mo chain grab that is way less impressive than anyone working on the film wanted it to be. The end of the chase ends up with Cody being arrested and interrogated, where he gets to play smartest in the room again, being confident that this strict officer is going to look like a fool when a phone call comes in to set him free. But that phone call wasn't from Keith David. It was from Emily, who turns out to be a British undercover operative who is working on the same case herself, and now we get these two agents talking about this whole mission, sharing some Chinese food together on the back of a horse and buggy taxi, loudly talking about their secret missions, a mere few feet away from the driver. And also right next to the driver, without him noticing, is Cody being kidnapped once Emily steps out for a brief second. The bad guys end up inserting a chip into his mouth and are able to control him, now as we see him acting weird and off when back at the mansion as everyone takes notice of it. But Keith David is in town for this big meeting of world leaders at the palace, and Cody and him agree to meet and discuss the mission. But before Cody leaves to this, he starts flinging food around because the people controlling him are dumb, and everyone else is just kind of annoyed at this, or they're enjoying the chaos and laughing. The plan worked with tricking the CIA director, as now Keith David has a mind-controlled tooth implant now as well. But Emily sees everything, filling Derek in on this, so now they capture Cody and need to get that implant out of him. So Derek just elbows him in the face and then uses a tad bit of Mento to cause a little bit of an explosion in his mouth to get the chip out, you know, rather than a whole Mento so it doesn't do this. Things aren't looking good though. All the powerful world leaders are in the UK and are meeting with the Queen for this event, with the mind control working and a plan by the bad guys to place more controls on several of these important figures. They can get whatever they want, access to more money given to them, more important job titles handed to them, literally freedom to control how their lives will turn out. And then Duncan just breaks up with Josephine, and that's the scene. Like, we just move on from that. And she doesn't take it any other way than just being shocked, I guess.
Which is why I'm leaving you.
Leaving me?
This is turning out to be a marvelous evening.
Cody catches up with the band as him, Emily, and the pastry chef, Derek, explain what is really going on, telling them all about the whole secret agent thing and how they have to stop this evil plot from happening, and that they need the band to not stop playing as the real plan takes effect from the bad guys once the concert is finished. So the concert then becomes this fun backing music and tempo enhancer as our three heroes now run around the rest of the palace while the concert is happening, dealing with the bad guys, but Derek gets implanted at one point and Cody has to fight this Terminator like Anthony Anderson.
Terminate Cody Banks.
Quit fooling around.
Which, by the way, I love this shot here, where Derek just looks so much larger and threatening to really emphasize the challenge here. Like, this is menacing, and I love it. But Cody's able to defeat him in the end, and together they punch out Keith David, or a stand-in for Keith David. We never see his face here. But this helps them get the chip out of his mouth, and hey, things are looking up. The concert continues on past the end of their performance, where Theon gets very jazzy with a cover of War, asking the real questions like, what is it good for? Also, during the song being performed, the Queen goes from being really into it to then being confused to then being really into it. I think she just doesn't know where she is or what's going on. This old guy here, who has been a butler throughout the whole movie, turns out to have been working with Emily as her handler in disguise as well. All these secret agents sure are really parasiting the Kensworth family. But the day is saved thanks to Cody Banks, Derek, Emily, Emily's handler, and the whole orchestra. And in the end, after we leave London and head back to the camp, we see that Cody helped Derek get a better job in the CIA again. And that is helping train the kids at the camp, as he seemed to work really well with Cody in the end. And then when his parents pick him up once camp is over for the summer, his brother tries eating one of the Mentos and Cody quickly throws it out of the window and into the lake where it blows up, blowing his brother's mind that it actually did that, and their parents are oblivious as Cody goes on to continue his life as a secret agent and maybe continue his relationship with Natalie from the last movie, who is not seen in this movie, and maybe there was some tension between him and Emily in London, so who knows what happens next. So that's the Agent Cody Banks movies, a series of fun, family-friendly, well, that's debatable, films that really showcase the early 2000s era, from the look of the sets to the plot of the movies, to jokes that in modern day we may just look at as cringe, think is wild to be there in the first place, or for Twitter to get all in a frenzy about, but mostly cringe. Agent Cody Banks 1 and 2 really were a fun time, as I think the second film is a technical improvement over the first in terms of raising the stakes and production quality in general. So I do wish that there was a third Agent Cody Banks movie to see where the series could have gone. That would have been unlikely to happen around then, as the second movie pretty much bombed in theaters. And this initiative for MGM, where they focused on smaller budgeted films like this for younger demographics, weren't really performing that well. And they were trying to save on the cost of the second film, with the director of the second film saying stuff like, if you ain't got the money, just make them laugh instead. Meaning take out the action scene or CGI needed set piece and add some jokes into it. The other reason why it is unlikely is that Frankie Muniz is now a race car driver. So if you've been wondering what he's been up to, he's just racing around the track now, making left turn after left turn after left turn, and speaking of left turns, that's where the series could have gone years later. Surprisingly enough, with everything we just talked about, MGM was interested at some point to work with Frankie again to develop a new entry into the Agent Cody Banks universe, with one being an adult-rated animated series that was supposed to be similar in tone and plot to BoJack Horseman, where we'd focus on a washed-up Agent Cody Banks looking to reclaim his younger day peaks. And the other option would have been a family-friendly movie sequel, but having him as the trainer to this next generation of agents, probably at that fake summer camp. Frankie revealed all this himself to Steve-O on Steve-O's podcast.
Agent Cody Banks, maybe I'm not allowed to say this, I don't know. MGM has two really cool ideas. One is like a BoJack Horseman type cartoon when when you've saved the world as a kid and you can't better that.
Hilarious.
You know what I mean? Like, and then they have another idea for it still being like a kid's thing. Cody Banks teaching the new crop of
training
like the young,
But hey, at the end of the day, he was still paid $2 million per film, making him the highest paid child actor at the time, and that's pretty cool. For whatever cringe these movies have, for whatever stuff that hasn't aged particularly well, these movies feel like a staple of my childhood. They represent the era that they're from in ways that only watching them can really explain, and going back through them 20 years later just put me right back into that headspace of being a kid and thinking how cool it would be to be a secret agent. But, you know, let me know how you feel about this stuff. Tell me your thoughts, your memories, and all that fun stuff down below in the comments, as well as let me know which movie you liked more. Was it the first movie, the second movie? You tell me. But thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Later.
Period. As you say in America.